Hey guys, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel with your host El Young, and we are here with Trevor Bamford and Piers from the band Chaos Bleak. Welcome, guys.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having us.
Hello, everybody.
My pleasure. Could you introduce yourselves and what you do within the band Chaos Bleak?
Okay, shall I go first? I'm the singer and the very much the mouthpiece of the band. So
very quiet mouthpiece because you might
still.
Well,
So I'm Piers. I'm a singer. I write the lyrics. I do loads of stuff. Do some of the artwork that we have for our backdrop and videos and covers. I do a lot of gigs, write the lyrics, design the merch, all the obviously all the important stuff.
Well, my name's Trevor. I'm the guitarist in Chaos Bleak. I actually write all of the backing music, all the sequences and drum machines and the samplers, and I put it together in the studio here. And Justin, who's not with us tonight, he's the bass player. And the way that we record is quite unusual, is that actually we don't get together in the studio as a band to record. What we actually do is that I will write a backing track with the guitar. I will send it to Justin, who will then come up with a bass line. He'll then send me the bass line. I will then comp the two together. Then I will send the actual track with everything all mixed together to Piers, who will then record the vocals, and then he'll send the vocals to me. And what I do is I put everything together and add backing vocals, and I mix and master it. So we don't actually we're a bit unusual compared to most bands in that we don't sit around a guitar trying to come up with a riff and an idea. It's just done we all have our bits that we do. And what happens with us is that when we're rehearsing, we actually have to remember what we played, and then we actually have to learn what we've played so we can play it live. Yeah. And we generally do quite well, to be fair. With studio trickery being what it is, we tend to sound pretty much like the album, to be fair, which is really what we're about.
Whereas a lot of bands will sort of jam the music together, and that's how their stuff comes together. Ours sort of comes it's layered together, and then when the final project is ready, that's when we jam it and learn it.
Yeah,
it follows. So we almost have like an inverted way of writing and recording.
I mean, even before the virus, we kind of did it that way a bit anyway. But because we've got our own little setups. Justin's got his little studio, Piers has got his, and I've got mine, as you can see in the background. And so that's how we actually do it. It sounds odd, but it's just normal for us.
Yeah. That's sort of really. We were kind of doing that a little bit, and then the lockdown happened, and we with the best will in the world, we couldn't leave our houses, so we kind of had to do it, and it just kind of fell into place. It just worked.
I mean, what we did is that we just released an EP, just a few months ago, called Virus Shadow, and as Piers was saying, is that most of the tracks on that EP and loads more as well were all recorded during the effects of the virus. And we couldn't literally physically meet for months and months and months. And, it's like sort of, in a way, it's kind of, we were working that way a bit before, but the whole effects of the virus made it more, just sort of honed that even further, really. And it kind of works for us, really. So that's all good.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the
So let's dive into some questions. As kids, what were you basically listening to growing up?
Well, as a kid in my house, my parents had 2 records. They had the best of Andy Williams and Close to You by the Carpenters.
God.
So basically, that's what I grew up listening to. So I knew full well when it was my time to buy records, I would not be listening to Andy Williams. I would definitely not be listening to Gab.
So,
So I was, my sort of first band I was really into. I bought lots of singles and stuff when I was relatively young. Basically stuff that we heard on the radio that, just I like that, I'll buy it. But my first big band that I was really into was Adam and the Ants when I was about 10, who I just absolutely loved. They had a fantastic sound, they looked amazing, and they felt like a tribe. And it was a very attractive thing for me. I really, really liked that. And they sounded nothing like Andy Williams. So,
or Karen Carpenter.
Oh my God, Karen Carpenter.
Okay. Well, in some respects, I had a similar thing. I mean, in my house, music, well, to be honest, my whole background I come from, music isn't really valued, or it wasn't really valued. It was on in the background when the radio was on. And, I mean, we didn't really have any record players until I was about 14 or 15. My parents, I've just a message from Justin, he can't make it. He's had to go to his parents. Sorry, just thought I'd say. We kind of, I don't think my parents had a particular music taste. They just liked what they heard on the radio and had the odd thing. And, I could say I didn't really kind of start listening to music properly until I was about 14 or 15. And there's a few bands that I liked, from when I was a kid, bands like Mott the Hoople and whatever, which I still really like and all of that. But the first bands that really had an effect on me, that made me kind of literally want to learn to play the guitar, was Black Sabbath and Hawkwind. And to this day, those two influences are still with me. And the way I see it is that Black Sabbath, even though we know that they weren't seriously into the occult and all that kind of stuff, when I was 15 years old, they were the darkest thing you can imagine. And we're talking about, 1970s council estates in Nottingham. I mean, that was the darkest fucking thing. Oops, sorry, say darkest fucking thing you could find. So, and obviously, and also, if you're into Black Sabbath, you were considered weird, which is fine with me because I was weird. I'm weird. And the other band was Hawkwind, which are space rock. So, to me, to this day, those two forces are still very much in play with quite everything I do. And the thing is that a lot of people, you talk to guitarists, they say, well, what was your influences and stuff, and what did you want to do? And I always say this, and I know that nobody else says this at all, but this is actually true. I wanted the guitars to sound like a rocket engine, and I wanted the lead to sound like a radio signal from another galaxy. And that is, those two ideas are still there. And for me, so whenever I play anything, where in Chaos Bleak or anything, I'm listening for rhythm, and I want to be that kind of rocket engine, otherworldliness, whether it's sort of, I don't know, sort of dark and mystical, or whether it's quite literally cosmic. It's the otherworldly, that sort of transcendental experience. And that's kind of, and I kind of got into music, say I was 15, and nobody else liked the music I liked. And so I was basically had to kind of invent myself, really. So it's a bit of a strange one, really.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say for both of us, music is a very important thing in our lives. As it is to many people, I understand. But
yeah,
I know we've spoken about this in the past, Trev, but we haven't come from a background where music was an important thing.
No.
You find it and you love it and you explore it, and that's definitely what we've continued to do, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but music is absolutely my life. Everything else I do is sort of I do because I need to make money so I can play music and listen to music and be involved in music. Yeah, and even though I do enjoy the other things that I do, music is the thing,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's the same
music
here.
Is our first love.
Same here. Same music. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same here. Music's my life. It's been basically like yourself. It's been through all of my life. It's music's been played in my family home, been all over. Doesn't matter where I've been. I've always had music there. Music's been sort of like been there all my life, type of thing. So yeah.
I love it when you go to somebody's house for the first time, and I don't know if you do this, but the first thing you do is look through the record collection, and you look for the stuff that's both good and bad, because I think we're all on a journey, aren't we, to finding the perfect music. And sometimes, we've all got records that you think, oh God, I'm really embarrassed by that. But at the time,
I found a few the other day. I thought, bloody hell, what's this? Who put this in here?
Why is this one at the back?
Yeah. This isn't mine.
You actually say that.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I think everybody's got like at least one sort of like embarrassing record or single or whatever in the collection somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And sometimes
we all have our guilty pleasures.
Sometimes it is something you've borrowed and forgotten to give back, or they've not taken it back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember I've seen a sort of clip of the Lords of Chaos film. I've not seen the whole film. I want to see it. There's one bit where I think it's, oh God, I'm not sure the names. Euronymous meets Varg for the first time. And Varg has yet to kind of get into the whole black metal thing. And where he comes up to Euronymous after the gig, he starts saying how much he enjoyed seeing his band. And he just points to a patch on his jacket and says, Scorpions. That's all he says. Scorpions. Bloody hell. Mind you, I used to have a Scorpions album live in Japan or something. I can't remember.
Yeah. So, who really got you into music? Was it through a family member, or was it through self-discovery, or was it a friend, or anything like that?
For me, I'm an only child, so I didn't have any kind of like anybody to look up to or music that was handed down to me. For me, it was just stuff I discovered for myself through friends or through the Tube, the TV show The Tube. Top of the Pops, if I'm honest, there was always at least one good song on there. So my music discovery was very eclectic initially. I was listening to a lot of stuff, a lot of rock, a lot of hip hop, just lots of random stuff. And I think it's interesting to look back on stuff that you listen to in your formative years. I think, well, everything's probably had an influence to some degree. But for me, what I found was I got into music, or particularly the bands I'm into, via friends that became friends, or people you'd meet in the pub and you'd see T-shirts or stuff on the Tube. Just quite eclectically. If I'm honest, also sometimes just seeing like posters for gigs around town. I grew up in Oxford, and there was always posters for Every New Day Ghost.
It's my old band.
So I looked out for them for a while. I actually ended up having a 9th generation cassette version of Brave New World, I think it was. Completely unlistenable.
A New World.
And then you get the okay, yeah, New World. So I was just always on the lookout for new things. I sort of started to read stuff like Sounds magazine, things like that, and just sort of took my cues from there. They used to sell compilation cassettes from time to time. For a couple of quid, you'd get 20 songs on a cassette, and 5, 6 of them would be really good.
Cassette days were really useful for the underground.
Really good. Yeah. And I guess it's like YouTube now, isn't it? Where you put something in and you see what follows it naturally, and you discover new stuff that way. But I was always eagle-eyed and had an ear out for stuff. And obviously there's later stuff like John Peel and things like that. So, listen to John Peel, and half of it would be unlistenable rubbish, but there would be some
more than
stuff
half.
like, bloody hell, this is amazing. So take that
The
every
thing is
night.
with John Peel, it was always worth listening, even if,
Absolutely.
say, because he started off being 1 hour, then it went to 2 hours, then I think it went back to an hour again, and you'd hear at least one song that would be interesting. I mean, there was a lot of rubbish on his show, and a lot of backslapping, and there was you could really, really very clearly see the hand of the enemy. It was like kind of very much, very much kind of like, oh, here's the new band. It's really cool. They're called the Soggy Pajamas or something like that. He's, oh god. But
also at the same time, he would play stuff like that, and you think, oh god, this is rubbish. And then he'd play like some imported American hip hop, and it was like, bloody hell, this is so eclectic.
Yeah,
so I was always very conscious that you don't pigeonhole your music taste.
I mean, John Peel was important to me as well, really. But before I discovered John Peel, I think the first radio show I really discovered was the Alan Freeman show on a Saturday afternoon. And for me, that was a real major thing, because how I discovered rock music, if you will, was kind of by chance. I mean, I mentioned earlier on about Hawkwind and Black Sabbath. There's actually a bit of a story to it. This involves Stuart. I think you've heard the story before, Piers. But basically, our friend of ours called Stuart, him and his mates, this is going back to when we were at school, they used to have this science fiction club at the school. And it was the school fete, and they decided they were going to have a stall, and they were selling various science fiction books and whatever. And they had a reel-to-reel tape recorder player. Really, I kid you not. And he was playing all this music that I'd never heard before. And what really struck me immediately, because it's so different, was Hawkwind and Black Sabbath, or Black Sabbath and Hawkwind in order. And it was because of that one experience that I heard some Black Sabbath for the first time. And I went off and bought a couple of Sabbath albums. And then I heard Hawkwind, because I'm into science fiction anyway. So that just really hit a chord. And it was that. And then once I started on that journey, I started trying to find radio stations and music papers that talked about this. So it's a similar kind of journey, but some years before. And so I ended up listening to John Peel as well, even though I didn't always agree with everything he said. So there you go. Yeah. So it kind of, there was no one person that kind of took me by the hand and said, "Let me lead you to the streets of rock." That never actually happened. It was just a gradual, slow process. I'd start finding out about magazines, and there used to be a shop in Nottingham called Selector Disc, which you say if you're a certain age and you say the word Selector Disc in Nottingham, loads of people just get really excited.
You go dewy-eyed.
Yeah, because it was this really cool record store that sold tons and tons of second-hand albums at a really cheap rate. So when you're at school and you've really got a small amount of pocket money, you sort of discover this shop that sells this kind of music, like stupidly cheap. You're there every Saturday morning, and they used to have these huge racks of records, and you were like a raccoon going through as quick as possible, trying to find all and going, what the hell? And you start reading your music papers, and you'd find out who they were talking about was similar to the music you liked. And then you'd kind of look at the album covers, and there's loads of albums I bought just instead of the album covers. And that's kind of how it went. It was Selector Disc. It was John Peel show. It was Ellen Freeman show. It was various music papers at the time. And mates, people I met, they say, "Oh, have you listened to such and such?" And I went, "No, I don't know about them." Write the name down, and off I'd go.
Yeah. I was quite lucky. I always had friends who worked in record shops, and quite often you'd go in and they'd say, "Do you want this?" They'd give you stuff.
No.
So quite often they were giving it me because it wasn't selling because it was rubbish. But sometimes you get some real gems.
Yeah.
And then off the back of that, then you buy the back catalogue when you can afford it. So
Yeah.
So those bands, I didn't just get you for free. I promise I did.
Yeah.
So, who inspired you to become a musician? Was it a family friend, or or somebody from a band, or a friend, or whoever?
For me, it was Steve Severin out of Susie and the Banshees, because A, he looked cool, and secondly, he knew Susie Sue. That was enough for me. That was enough.
For me, what inspired me to be a musician is that obviously I picked up on Sabbath, and but I thought no, it's a bit too widdly for me. I don't think I can ever do this, or still really loved it, but it wasn't really what I wanted to play. And then when I heard Space Ritual by Hawkwind, I thought I reckon I could do that, and so that's how it started. And then obviously, I discovered punk rock came along at that time and whatever else, and so it all kind of went into the mix really. So it wasn't sort of any particular individual other than say it was certain bands and certain stuff like that. But I remember there was one time when I wasn't going to be a musician, and then when I heard Space Ritual, I thought, yeah, you know what, I really think I can play that, and I can and did. So there you go.
For me, actually, in terms of taking it seriously, the band Pot Will Eat itself had an album called "This Is the Day, This Is the Hour, This Is This," which was their first sort of hip hop, sort of rap kind of record. They'd been sort of an indie band previously, and were okay. I mean, they were not bad, but this record came out and it was a massive game changer. And I remember listening to it with my friends, and we were in a band at the time, and it was like, I don't mean this in any derogatory way, but if they can do this, we can do this.
Then I can never go.
So that really kind of forced our hand to play better, to perform better, to write better, to write songs, to be honest, rather than shitty cover versions. So for me, it's Steve Severin and Pop Will Eat Itself.
I mean, I'm a big Banshees fan as well, to be fair. They went into the mix as well, but drilling it right back, it was Hawkwind's Space Ritual, which was the single most game changer moment.
And it's strange because when you listen to it now, even now, it sounds to me modern and exciting.
I think when I listen back to Space Ritual, particularly, it doesn't sound like anything else.
No.
Even Hawkwind don't sound like they did on Space Ritual.
No.
It's like that was a period which only lasted for 2 albums. That was Do Re Mi, which is the album prior to Space Ritual, and Space Ritual. And after that, I mean, they're still a good band. They were a good band, in my opinion, up to about 79. And then after that, I just really couldn't really relate to what they were doing anymore. But Space Ritual, it stands up on its own. There's nothing else like it. I mean, the only other band that's like it, and it's not really like it at all, is some of the stuff by Chrome, which is another influence on me. The obscure or experimental American band who probably went from being experimental to space rock to gothic rock and back again, and round and round in a circle. So they kind of touched
in the space of one song as well.
In one song, yeah, they kind of experimental space rock, space metal, gothic rock. I mean, out of the 2 of the guys in the band, the one who was probably more gothic-y was Damon Edge, and when he was in control, the stuff he did was a bit more gothic-y. But obviously, Helios Creed was a guitarist, and he kind of was also into kind of, again, trying to make his guitar sound like a radio signal from another galaxy, which is all good in my book, as I've already said. So that
needs to be a setting, doesn't it, on a pedal?
Say
that needs to be a setting on a pedal.
Yeah, space radio signal from another galaxy. Forget about the Blues Boys. Just sound like something that's just come from Saturn.
Yeah, it's coming out Uranus.
I knew you were going to say that. I was thinking I'm going to count to 5 before somebody mentions something coming from about the rings around Uranus and stuff like that.
Yes, we are playing.
I found out the other day. Do you know that Pluto is red and white? And not only is it red and white, it has 5 moons.
If you take one for the
Oh god. Moving on. What bands were you in before you sort of started Chaos Bleak?
How long we got?
How long we got?
You start with
okay, so I was in a cult cover band back in the late 80s. We were fucking shit. But it was good fun. We played a party every Friday night. Our drummer had his kit was set up in his kitchen, and it stayed up all the time. So we played parties every Friday night. We were awful, but we had a great time. It was a great way to get people together.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the most important thing, that people would come to see us. I like to think they were so that was my sort of formative years. Then I was in a band called God, what they're called? Yeah, they're black and white. So we were a kind of proto metal goth band, very akin to Creaming Jesus. So we sounded like Creaming Jesus before I even heard Creaming Jesus, who are a fantastic band, by the way. We played with our Nuda Ghost. That was the highlight of my time with that band. Later on, I was in Midnight Configuration with Trev and Arcane Winter with Trev, and now I'm in Chaos Bleak
with Trev. Right. So my band genealogy. I mean, I had various sort of, bands when I was younger, when you kind of first getting together, and which we had various names and changes of direction and whatever else. The first serious project I had was a project called Desolation, which was back in the early 80s, and it was pretty much me and whoever else can get to work with me, and we just recorded stuff on a simple 4-track. And we put out 3 cassette albums and a few others. And back in the independent tape trading days of the early 80s, we sold bucket loads. We had the first one was called Desolation on Broadway. Second tape was called Morality Zone, and the third one was called Termination Phase 1. We had a couple of others out after that, but they were the main 3. And that band, when I came back to Nottingham, because I was away at university for a couple of years, when I came back, kind of gradually evolved into a band called, Urban Desolation. And I got other people in, and a different singer and whatever else. And then that band eventually morphed into an early lineup of the band that Piers mentioned earlier on called Every New Dead Ghost, which is the most well-known band, the most active band that I've been in. And we were going for different lineups. But I think probably from about 85 to about 92 with different lineups. And then after Every New Dead Ghost, I formed a project which was only intended to be an artistic project called Midnight Configuration, but then and do just a couple of shows, which are going to be more theatrical based. But the demand was such that people wanted a real band, and record label I ran, Nightbreed, which still technically runs in one form or another. The bands on the label wanted somebody to tour with, so I made Midnight Configuration a real band. And I was in Midnight Configuration for 18 years, which is quite some going, really, for a band that was only meant to be like a short-based project band. Then after Midnight Configuration, Piers and I formed Arcane Winter, and I also formed a project with my wife called Death Party UK. And the stuff we did with Arcane Winter was very much post Every New Dead Ghost, post-punk, really. But the stuff I did with Death Party UK was influenced by bands like the Cramps and the Gun Club, that kind of sort of very fast punk, post-punk rockabilly. And then Piers and I, we had to stop Arcane Winter for a while because at first our drummer left, and then our bassist had some family issues, which went on for several years. And eventually what happened was Piers and I got sick to death of waiting. And we had several meetings about restarting Arcane Winter. And during the course of these sort of meetings that we had, we decided that actually what we wanted to do was to do something more progressive, something that was more akin to a mixture between sort of our 90s goth influences, the pre-influences which we've all got, but also to synthesize aspects of Midnight Configuration with aspects of Arcane Winter. And that's Chaos Bleak.
Yeah.
Oh, I've also got a side project which is on not doing much at the moment called the Angel Fire Project, which is a prog goth project, which is just me and my wife, and each song is a minimum of 8 minutes long with 2 guitar solos.
So as you can tell, we've hardly done anything.
Yeah, we've sat on the backsides for a
Yes. Speaking of Midnight Configuration, I did manage to get the chance to actually come down and actually see Midnight Configuration down in Nottingham, back in 2011.
Where it was?
The Old Angel. Angel.
Nice.
It was Incubus Succubus was headliner.
God, when was that?
Yeah.
Which year was that, sorry, Al?
2011.
Yeah. And the old Angel as well, which was a fantastic venue in Nottingham.
Was that Dark End? That was the last.
Dark End, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the last
no, I think it was the last
show.
I think it was one of the last shows. I think.
Yeah, it was intended to be the last show. And then we were kind of, it was Dark End, yeah. Then we had a couple more shows we were contracted to do. And then we reformed for a one-off doing Nottingham. And then I reformed the band again to play Los Angeles and Mexico City. And then we did one more show in Whitby, but that was it. And I forget which year that was. I think that was 2017. So the final, even though we disbanded Midnight Configuration in 2011, we kind of reformed it a couple of times, but the last incarnation was 2017.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I've always wanted to as soon as I heard Midnight Configuration, I was really desperate to come and see you guys, and I finally got a chance to.
You vocals that day, didn't you? Backing vocals that day, didn't you? Yeah, you were on backing vocals that day.
Yeah, keyboards, yeah.
But you did. Yeah. It was mine. Not the vocals.
I was properly singing. Dare you.
How very dare you.
That gig was like the first time I actually saw Incubus Succubus headline with you guys with I can't think Lupine was on the same bill and I can't remember the Dionysus, I think they were called the first band on.
Yes, it was Dionysus, yes.
Well, I can't even remember who else was on that night. Wow.
Yeah, that was a good night.
It was a good night. That was a particularly good midnight show. That was.
Yeah. That was a good Darkened as well. To be fair,
it was actually. It was
solid lineup.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Should do more of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, wasn't the old Angel?
So let's get. Yeah. What has the band been up to? Chaos Bleak been up to, especially over these last couple of years? You did mention that you've been writing and sort of like recording stuff, but what else have you been up to?
Well, recently we've been playing quite a lot of shows. We've been gigging pretty hard of late, which has been good. That's kind of the reason you make music, isn't it? To get out and play it live. So we've had quite a busy year. We've done some videos, released the new EP.
Virus Shadow.
Yeah, and we're still writing material, as we go. I was writing some lyrics this afternoon, so it's
we've got to decide on the next single we're doing. Actually, we're doing. I think it's next Saturday. Interview we talk about it. Next Saturday. We're doing a special kind of band friends and relations get together because none of us could decide. But 2 songs that could be a single. There might be 3, but there's 2 songs that could be a single which haven't been released. But we can't decide which one's going to be the next single. Plus,
because there's 3 of us in the band, you think the decision would be quite easy. Because there's 3 of us in the band, you think decisions would be quite easy. But 3 of us, there's 4 people.
So what we're going to do is we're going to get everybody together next week We've got a bottle of vodka with Chaos Bleak's name on it, quite literally.
Oh,
Show him the bottle if you've got it.
The bourbon.
Show him the bottle.
Thank you. Yes.
So what we're going to do is we're all going to get together in a mate's house, and there's going to be obviously our friends, and
it's going to be carnage.
and we're going to sit together. We have to plan this. It's just an idea. We haven't really planned this yet, but we're going to have to sit together. We're going to say, right, we're going to play you 2 tracks, and people have got to kind of make a decision as to which one they think should be the next single. And what the plan was, as I remember, is that once we decided which song is going to be the next single, then everybody's got to contribute ideas for the video. And it's got to be sensible. It can't be daft. Well, it can be a bit daft.
So
because one of the things we've got, El, right, is that we do videos. We've got a friend called Stu who does a load of our visuals for us. And he wants us, he's been wanting this for years. He wants us to write a proper scripted video with like storyboard. But the trouble is, there's a Chaos Bleak. You can't see it. Oh, yes, you can. There you go.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Look, I'm checking the top. Make sure you've not had any nips out of it. And that was it. So he's been wanting us to do a proper scripted, storyboarded video for years. What actually happens is we tend to run out of time, and we just get some live footage and then put stuff together on, video together. Edit it together with various other footage. And Stuart's been wanting us to do a proper video for years. So I've been saying, the trouble is I can't think of storyboards. I just can't. I tried. I can't do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this meeting together, get everybody's input. Then we've got to decide, peers, who's going to be the scribe to write up the ideas. And it's not going to be me.
Because we're going to be drunk.
Well, somebody's going to bloody well do it. It's not going to be me. Because I can't do it anyway. So anyways, the idea is we write up the ideas, and then we kind of have another meeting probably after the whiskey's gone, and decide this is this song and this is how we're going to put the video together. Yeah. Sounds like a good idea. We thought it was a good idea in the pub the other day anyway.
Where else do you get your best ideas, eh?
Chaos Bleak was born in the pub.
I'll have another one.
I have no idea, but we get there. You go. Oh, what we're doing? Yeah. So we've got a load of stuff coming out. We've got some unreleased live albums that recorded at a place called the Square Centre in Nottingham, which has now been demolished. And the idea is that we were going to do like a live gig during lockdown, and we started rehearsing for it. And the rehearsals were recorded both video and also on a multi-track, and they sound pretty good. The trouble is that then the laws changed and we couldn't even meet in a room, so we had to knock that on the head. And since then, the whole place has been demolished. So we've got those somewhere, and we don't know what to do with some of the tracks. May come out as bonus tracks and whatever else. So we've got that, and then we've obviously got. We're working on a load of material at the moment. I've sent a load of songs to Piers. You've got to do vocals for, and I've sent some more to Justin. He's going to do bass lines for. But to be fair, there's a load of bass lines he's done which I haven't put together in songs yet. It's about another 3 songs. Yeah. So we've got like a assembly line now of stuff that comes. We're kind of constantly working on things in a way.
Yeah, but sort of going back to how we were saying how we work, it means that we can do that. So instead of it being like we're all together and just we do stuff and then move on to the next project or the next song, we can have lots of things sort of on the boil at any one time, which is actually, I mean, in terms of sort of creativity, is a really good thing because you can come back to stuff should you need to, or not, depending on how good it may be. It's always nice to have a couple of songs on the go at any one time. And also sort of thinking about the demo for the next couple of songs that sort of coming down the line.
So, Cool. So are you going to be touring a little bit more, or are you going to be doing like a full-blown tour to actually promote the EP?
So our next few shows. So we've got so we're playing Carpe Noctem in Leeds on the
2nd of July.
Then we're playing Goth City again in Leeds on the 10th of July, and then we're playing KR Rocks on the 28th.
In Southport.
In Southport. So we've got sort of some festival and club night shows coming up. So we're going to concentrate on those, and then I'm sort of looking to book for sort of further gigs, maybe sort of.
They're the ones that are confirmed. There's another one in October, but we haven't had the details for that. But that's going to be up in Whitby. Yeah,
but we love. I mean, we love to play live. It's absolutely, it's absolutely the reason that we make any music at all. So, we're looking to play as often as possible and wherever. It really doesn't matter. We're sort of looking at maybe playing a show in Belgium, but that's early days at the minute. So, who knows what will come from that?
Yeah. I was going to ask, would you be willing?
Sorry, Ali. Sorry, I didn't miss that bit.
Would you ever consider going over to back to the States or over to Mexico or even to Europe?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's up to the promoters, really. I mean, it's difficult these days as an underground band to actually tour. Venues are closing down. Attendances are going down at small gigs. I mean, the big, large corporate festivals will still pull loads of people whilst they've still got the old classic 80s bands still playing and everything. But on the smaller end of the circuit, it's getting more and more difficult to actually play live. And it's difficult to book gigs because I say the venues just don't exist anymore. So, I mean, going over to America or Mexico, it's entirely up to the promoters. If there's a promoter that's willing to do that, then obviously we're up for going. I mean, like I say, I did some shows a couple of years ago as Midnight Configuration and Death Party UK. And, I don't see any reason why Chaos Bleak can't be asked to play over there. But at the moment, we're just open to suggestions. But the trouble is, like I say, the gigs are just drying up everywhere.
Yeah. Well, certainly in the UK, but I'd happily play anywhere. I think we had a conversation many years ago now with a friend of ours, Van Demian Dave, in a band called Van Demian, and he was saying that for that band, they made music so they could travel, so they could go abroad and play. They could see places and meet people, and that just is such an attractive idea. I think.
Yeah.
That you write your music in your in your home studio in Nottingham, and then that's listened to around the world, and a promoter will say, come and play in Peru, and if we can get there, yes, absolutely, we'd love to.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic to play. I mean, any gig, and to meet new people. I mean, often we'll play to mates of ours because our mates will come to our shows, but it's when you meet people that don't know us. And say, oh, fantastic! I love your record. I love this. I love that about you. It's so rewarding, and it's exactly the reason that you pick up an instrument in the first place. I think.
Yeah.
It's totally. For me, when I was growing up and I was listening to music, that sort of real kind of intense passion you have for it, when people give you that back, it's so rewarding. It's it's the best feeling in the world. It really is.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Cool. So, where can people find you on social media?
Oh, crikey! So we're on Facebook. I mean, as is everybody in the world, because it's a legal requirement now.
I think so.
So yeah, we've got quite a strong Facebook presence. We have a Bandcamp page, which you can find quite easily by going to Bandcamp and putting in Chaos Bleak. Very easy to find. So everything we have is available there to listen to download, to buy, should you wish. We don't really use, as individuals, we use things like Instagram, but we don't have a band Instagram. But primarily, I think Facebook is just such a dominant platform.
Yeah, it's a dominant tool, isn't it?
It's really the one you really need to concentrate on, I think. But we do have our own YouTube channel, So if you want to go onto YouTube and just put in,
check us out on YouTube.
So we have lots. We have every song we have has a video. Be that had it been a single or just a track on an EP.
One track that hasn't.
Which one?
That's been released. When the Lights Go Out.
I'll do one.
It's never had a video.
It's just dark. They're quite easy. I'll shoot that tomorrow. But yeah, so we definitely have a social media presence, but I think it's appropriate to musicians of our age. I think. So, you know, we're not on Instagram with our tops off.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want that, then I'm sure we'll do that. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So this is probably going to be my last question, and it can be a bit of a stumper. Any advice for people who want to become musicians?
It's an interesting question.
Yes, definitely. I would say listen to all the music you can listen to. Don't necessarily concentrate on your favorite style of music. Listen to as much as you can to get as many influences as possible, and be open-minded and listen to music which is old and new. Listen to film music, listen to jazz, listen to stuff which you probably are unfamiliar with. Read as many books as you can, read poetry, look for as many sort of metaphors or similes that you can find, and just sort of immerse yourself in creativity of all sorts, not just necessarily music. Just really sort of dive in and become the musician that you can be, not that you are, if that makes sense. Grow, grow, learn your craft. But absolutely, if you want to do it, do it. I think there's now nothing stopping you. I think the internet has really helped all sorts of
and technology generally, really.
And technology, absolutely. I think
we're the living proof of that.
Absolutely. So those the days I think of putting your demo together and scraping all your money together and sending it off to record labels and just not hearing anything back. Those days are gone, and that's good.
Yeah.
You can put your music out on Bandcamp, for example, very easily. And if you reach one person and you touch one person, you've got it right. Oh, and obviously, get a publishing deal as well.
That's pretty much what I think as well. I mean, I think the only thing is about being a musician is that, yes, I mean, I became a musician when I was 15, 16, or started on the journey of becoming a musician when I was 15 or 16. And it's it can be, it's a lifetime journey. You never stop with it. And the thing is, even though you may not make any kind of money, in fact, it'll cost you far more, for most people. And certainly the way culture's going now is, I think the days of the big old rock stars are over, to be fair. And I think what's going to happen is that ultimately, music is going to be more parochial. It's going to be more important to your tribe, if you will. Your tribe could exist literally within a physical location, or it could exist on the internet or whatever. But the value of what you do as a musician is reflected in the way that the tribe value it and interface with it, because virtually nobody sells CDs particularly anymore. And when you have all these kind of mainstream pop acts, see how many downloads they've got. Most of those figures are, shall we say, massaged, to say the least. And so, because people
not even big bands sell CDs.
Yeah,
this
year, I think this year,
product in the way they used
Iron Maiden and talking about metal stuff, Iron Maiden and who else? Def Leppard have released albums this year, and they haven't done anywhere near as much as anything they've done in the past. There's no reflection on the bands, because I think both albums received critical reviews saying this is the best work they've ever done. The fact of the matter is it's not to do with it's not the fault of the bands. It's the way that people choose to interact with music now. People simply don't buy CDs, they don't buy records. And as soon as anybody says that, people say, yeah, I still do. But I bet it's not as much as what you did when you were 15, which is fine. You know, that's just how society changes.
Yeah.
People interface with music differently now. That doesn't mean that it hasn't got a value. Its value is the value that the tribe, your immediate, are not so immediate, sort of,
It's
historic
less value
or
like this, isn't
nest.
it? It's
Yeah.
value here.
So
And I
yes,
think
value.
value
It's
here
value is
is
artistic
worth
and
more.
social. And so I would say to advise to someone becoming a musician is that it's a great thing to do, because basically my whole life has been made by literally I picked up a guitar and decided I was going to learn to play it, and that one decision changed my life, made my life. It's every single friend I've got, every single relationship I've had, in one way or the other, is connected to music. So, and being a musician, that's the two things are connected but separate. So I think that if you want to become a musician, do it for the love of it. Don't do it because you think you're going to be famous. Don't do it because you think you're going to make money, because you won't make money unless you do the most ordinary, mainstream, middle of the road pop music you can imagine. And even then, that's not guaranteed. Just do music that you want to do because it's what you want to do. To thine own self be true.
Please.
And that is what advice I would give to any musicians. I've never regretted learning to play guitar. It's the greatest thing I ever did. Completely made my life. And I'm sure everybody else that's in bands will say the same thing. But like I say, the days of expecting loads of money and rock star treatment are literally as dead as a dodo. It's gone.
Yeah.
And with those words,
It's a cheap note, isn't it? If you're just learning to play guitar or something. Practice your scales, learn your craft.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for that, for this doing this interview. It's been an absolute pleasure. Been an absolute pleasure.
All right.
Cheers. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Cheers. We've been Chaos Bleak. Thank you.
Cheers.
How do
Thank
we
you.
turn this off now? What do we do now?
We're still rolling, Trev.
Oh.